Hello loves, welcome back to TigeraGitana. Today we are going to be talking about something that I think needs to be spoken about, and that is decolonizing your spirituality. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a topic, so I hope that y'all are ready and that y'all grab some tea in the process so we can all drink together. Okay, so decolonizing spirituality. And when I say decolonizing, I am specifically talking about in the way that we refer our spirits, okay? Our divine beings, okay? Our spiritual fragments, our the nature spirits, all of these different things, and how we refer to them spiritually. So decolonizing spirituality, it's a very in-depth topic when you start breaking down and kind of like looking at what is what and whom is whom, right? But I want to specifically talk about why it's important to refer to spirits that are from a specific culture, religion, in their respective titles, okay? Because a lot of people, this happened today on TikTok. I had to like do a stitch to someone who called Oshun a goddess, the goddess of the river. And so I had comments in her post and I was like, hey, she's an Orisha. So I had to make a video about it because she called Orishas minor deities, and that's just like, it's a minor thing, so she just called her god or whatnot. But it's not appropriate to do that because that's not what our ancestors called their spirits. It's important to acknowledge the history, acknowledge how our ancestors referred to these advanced beings, okay? Because it's very disrespectful to try to water it down and then start looking at it through a colonial kind of lens and just applying the terms gods and goddesses to everything. And kind of what happens throughout time is that because they're not respected or seen or used, the words of that culture are not being used and they just get watered down. The message of who they are in that religion, their presence within that mythology and everything, gets really, really watered down. So let's kind of break that down. So let's start with the Orishas. So the word Orisha, what an Orisha is a personified force of nature that is under Olodumare, okay? And so that obviously it's a specific requirement, okay? It's not the same thing as a god, because when you look at gods, when you take a moment to think about what is God? Who do you think about when you hear the word God, okay? God, who do you think about? Jesus would be one of them, right? You would think of maybe like the Greek gods, you would think of the Roman gods, you would start thinking of like a more centric, the Eurocentric religions. And then right now there's this TikTok trend where people are trying to, push forth the mythologies of different cultures because everybody uses this one sound. I think it's a Russian sound, like there's some music, the song specifically, I think it's Russian, I believe. Or is it Slavic? I do not recall. I'm sorry to whoever that offended. I don't remember what the song is called or where it comes from, but I know that a lot of people use that sound specifically to talk about like, oh, look at how bomb my mythology is, look at how bomb my gods are, my deities, my gods and goddesses, look at it. And then they'll start trying to like, oh yeah, like, okay, you got Greek gods or whatever, but we got this, these are our gods, when they're not gods. Okay. And so while the Greek, the Roman, the Eurocentric have their way of looking at their gods, which is definitely differs from the way that the BIPOC community looks at their spirits. You have to really understand the differences, and I'm going to break down a couple of different things. So the first thing is, when it comes to Orisha, again, I already gave you the definition for Orisha. So because they did not use in their language, they did not use the word god or goddess. When you are referring to an Orisha, that's what they're called. You use the word Orisha to refer to, okay? You're not saying goddess Oshun. They weren't doing that in their culture. They are Orishas, and they should be respected and honored for that, because that is the way that they pass down. And so for us to insert a colonial point of view and move over and continue to push that narrative within those spiritual communities, it's going to end up whitewashing it. Because what's going to happen is that, you know, people are going to be like, oh, this is my mythology. This is what, you know, what our ancestors did. And then they're going to be like, Oshun is the goddess of the river, and kind of whitewash a lot of what Oshun is, a lot of, and even like when it comes to her, people thinking that she just does those specific things when she has so many different paths. Like, it's important to respect the traditions that are associated to different religions, and it's important to decolonize and really look at your spirits in a way that it's not offending your bloodline, offending even like those cultures, by watering them down and whitewashing it, because there's so much more to Oshun. And to call on her as a goddess when she really is an Orisha, it's like spitting on those cultures and saying, I'll call them what I want, I do what I want, right? And that's a very much colonial perspective, because that's what the colonizers did. They came into those communities and they demonized those spirits. They demonized them, called them demons. They called them every single name in the book, and they made them fear them. And now I get the association of wanting to elevate them and look at them as, no, look, you have your God, but I have what? Yes, but it is important. Even the word Orisha holds a certain vibration. It's important to sustain that and pass down those words, pass down that foundation of understanding. Because even explaining that to a child, like, imagine being like, oh yeah, an Orisha, no, Oshun is a goddess. When, like, if you were to tell a child, so in our culture, they're actually called Orishas, and to tell the story of everything, it just kind of leads into a different kind of bigger story, a bigger mythology, a bigger explanation that you kind of have to explain how it came to be, all of these kind of things. That is very powerful, and it connects us to our ancestral ties and bonds that we have with these spirits. So it's important to respect that. Now, this does not only apply to Orishas, okay? So this is something that I've been seeing a lot, especially on TikTok, but you can't just call everything an Orisha. Not even things that are a little bit more that come from a colonial perspective. Like, the archangels are not gods. They are not gods, okay? They are angels. It's in the name. Like, I don't understand why we have to respect certain things to call them what, like, oh, you know, white people came and they said, no, there are angels. That's what they're to be called. You can't just be like, Michael, God Michael. It's not the same thing. It does not hold the same vibration, and it does not call on the actual spirit that you are trying to communicate with. If you're not specific, you're going to have a lot of trickster spirit situations anyway. But you can't just call someone out of their name. It's like somebody calling you, but not, like, trying to call you, but then not calling you by your name. It's just not respectful. You know what I mean? So it's just really about understanding, like, okay, angels are angels. You refer to them as angels because that's what they are. Orishas are Orishas. You refer to them as Orishas because that's what they are. Loas are not gods. A Loa is not a god. And so everything does not fit under the colonial perspective of what a god looks like. Even when it comes to the ancient Egyptians, the Kemetic gods and goddesses, they are the Neteru. They are not gods. So there's like levels of breaking things down where you have to really look at what words, like ask yourself, what words did these ancient cultures and civilizations use today? Like, what did they use to refer to their spirits? How can I better respect these spirits and address them accordingly? Okay. When it comes to, and this is a really, really big thing when it comes to indigenous practices, which, by the way, the Yoruba are a tribe that is an indigenous religion and indigenous practice. Anyway, indigenous practices around the world, because indigenous is a global term. Indigenous meaning native to the lands itself. So indigenous practice, a lot of the time, they are very deeply connected to nature. Okay, this is why, Orishas within the definition, it is a personified force of nature. If you look at a lot of indigenous practices and beliefs and mythology around the world, including in the Americas, Turtle Islands, you would see that they have names for their spirits, for their different nature spirits, and including their spiritual fragments, all of these different things, they have names for them already. From my side, I have ancestors, right? My ancestors practice Semism or Semism, okay? And that's one of the things that I honor today. The Cemis, okay, are ancestral spirits, which, by the way, a lot of indigenous practices also have that belief. Even within the Orishas, they are meant to be seen as ancestral spirits, okay? And so when it comes to the Cemis, they are to be regarded as ancestral spirits, but they also are the embodiment of different parts of nature. So, and I've explained this before in a different TikTok video, but I got to get now because TikTok wanted to be a jerk. But for example, one of the Cemis within Semism is Yukahu. Yukahu is the Semi of fertility when it comes to agriculture within the Taino mythology. But at the same time, he is also El Yunque, like the forest in Puerto Rico and those mountains. He is El Yunque, like that is also what he is. So when you are in El Yunque, you are in his space, okay? So it is an embodiment of nature, and they are referred and revered as that, as the embodiment of nature. I hope that that's making sense. Like, you have to make sure that you are understanding how the spirits themselves manifest throughout their own mythology. So within Semism, not only does he rule the fertility with our agriculture, and food production and all of that stuff, but also those mountains, that area is also Yukahu. So because it is, venerated as that, we have to respect that. We can't just be like, Yukahu is a god. Like, no, Yukahu is a Semi, because that's what our ancestors called them, and they should be regarded as such, because the word Semi means ancestral spirit. It has a specific definition, and we need to be able to understand that, because the second we take away the connection that we have to those spirits, that's when it starts getting watered down and we see them as distant from us. If you look at a lot of the Greek mythology or whatnot, the definition of a deity or a god, it's more on a personified, but there is a disconnect from nature itself. So they end up ruling over things like love or whatever, but they don't rule the actual nature part. There is an understanding, like, for example, Thor is the god of thunder. Thor is not thunder. Thor is the god of, which means has control over. Now, while you can look at other mythologies and try to compare and see what the comparison is, and a lot of it, the indigenous mythology, thunder itself would be that specific spirit manifesting. I hope that I'm making sense here. I hope that you're still with me. But there is a difference between saying I am the god of, I control this, than I am the embodiment of this energy. and this is what I am called. There is a difference. And I hope that that makes sense, because this is where I think it starts getting watered down when we start looking at our spirits, our Cemis, our Orishas, our Loas, okay, and we start trying to make them very, very, very human, that we forget that they are very much, that a lot of them are very deeply connected and embody nature. Now, a lot of them do not embody nature, and there are personifications to them when it comes to the way that they manifest in their different paths and everything, and that should be respected accordingly. But to just blanket term like it's a god, it's a goddess, that's it, it just whitewashes it. It whitewashes the understanding, it whitewashes the definition of the words and the meaning of explaining what these spirits actually are, instead of just kind of seeing everything as just the same thing. It's just, you know, oh, she does love just like this one, just like that one. It's just, but she does love, but it's just, you know, it's in my culture, you have yours. That's not what it is. There's actual meaning behind the words, behind the mythology, behind the history, behind the stories that get passed down. And it's so important to be respectful and learn about these things and why it's important, what the understanding was, what the purpose of looking at them the way that it was taught. Because when we don't have that foundation of understanding, we then can, you know, start filling in the holes with things that are not actually a part of, and then we make mistakes where we can kind of end up saying things that are not necessarily true, or making a spirit too good to be true, or kind of like, you know, giving it like a love and light kind of perspective, when there are so many different ways that the spirit itself can manifest, and not all of it can be super positive. So it's important to look at and understand the layers, to break down the stories, to look at why how their energy gets used, why it's important to kind of understand how, you know, the stories are passed down, the understanding of those practices, and trying to look at it from a decolonization point of view, so that way we are not, you know, trying to kind of continue the cycle of like passing down some of these spirits like half-assed stories, half-assed you know, powers, abilities, or even how they manifest, or even not properly understanding like their paths and, you know, how they show up for us. Like it's very important for us to understand that a lot of these spirits, because they are the embodiment of nature is very mysterious. Okay, this is why, you know, there in certain practices they are called mysteries for a reason. Some spirits are very mysterious. They're not supposed to you're not supposed to know everything just right off the bat or anything like that. Some things take, you know, talking to elders, talking to priests, talking and studying and really diving in and connecting with the culture, respecting and honoring the beliefs, why they believe in what they believe, and not trying to, you know, water it down and say, you know, this is a god of this, this is a god of that. If you are practicing or working with a specific, you know, spirit, pay attention to how you speak of them. And also, if you are seamlessly talk to your spirits, ask them how they would prefer to be called, because not all spirits like to have certain, you know, but when it comes to, you know, bigger religions like Ifa and stuff like that, we must respect our West African ancestors. We must respect these stories. We must respect, you know, the purpose of these words still being used today. We must respect that. We can't just, you know, take a colonized perspective kind of lens and apply it to our ancestral spirits and our, you know, those spirits that we have bloodline connections to, that are still a force within our lives as well, and that are present within the family or whatnot. Like, it's just really important to respect how someone, you know, this is like, think of it like pronouns. Okay, respect. Respect how they are called. There's a lot of, you know, power in these words. There's a lot of like meaning to this, and they didn't just kind of, if your ancestors didn't just do that for no reason, there's no point of you disrespecting it and trying to call it something else that isn't. Okay, so I hope that that makes sense. Let me know in the comments if you have questions. We can try to kind of have more discussions on it, but those are my 2 cents on it. I think it's just really important to respect spirit in all the ways that they manifest in our lives, and so it's really important to understand, especially if there are those spirits that are, or beings, okay, that are connected to certain parts of nature. It's important to understand the manifestation forms and why they are referred to the way that they need to be referred to. So I hope that, you know, I hope that that helped in some way. So yeah, focus on decolonizing spirituality. I think that's something that needs to definitely be done. I know it's definitely a little hard to do if you're from, you know, the Caribbean, because there are synchronizations that happen within different religions, Santeria, 21 divisions, it just happened. So it's kind of like there is a blend that occurred, but it's still important to understand and, you know, accept that, you know, some spirits are who they are, and I would never call a Loa a god. I would never, you know, they need to be referred as they should be. It's just respectful. It's just about respect. Anyway, I just wanted to vent about that. I hope that this was helpful in any way. Definitely let me know if there's any other things that we can like talk about when it comes to decolonizing spirituality and stuff like that, because we can like dive into other areas and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. Thank you for all of the support. I know like the channel's about to reach 10,000 subscribers, so thank you all for all the love and all the support. For those who definitely want to check out the Healing America, a state-by-state ceremony to heal the land, which is a free event that I am doing, I'm hosting. It's going to be a state-by-state, so this is a ceremony that we're doing to healing the land. It's going to happen at the same time through all of the states, including the territories, and we have over 1,000 signups already. I'm so grateful to all of you who have signed up. It just means so much to me, and I cannot wait to do this work because I feel like it's super important. The whole entire ceremony itself is going to be like 20 minutes, so it's not, you know, going to be too crazy, but I really hope that you check it out. The form to sign up will be in the link in my bio, so definitely share and, you know, let others know, share it so as many people that want to participate can participate. Thank you so much for all of the love and support. I really appreciate you guys. I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you loves in the next video. Bye.